Welcome back. For today's video, we're going to be looking at parallel and perpendicular lines, and we're going to be answering some questions that relate to parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, just a real quick recap. Jump back a page here and have a blank page to work on. Parallel lines means two lines that go in the same direction and they will never cross paths. They go the same way forever in both directions. Even if we extended them and they kept going, they would never cross each other. They would just keep going straight in the same direction. So we say they are parallel lines. Okay? If the lines do cross paths, we call them intersecting lines. So if I had two lines that cross each other like this at a specific point, we call that intersecting lines. And then there's a very special kind of intersecting lines that we call perpendicular. Lines. And perpendicular lines are intersecting lines that form right angles. So they cross sort of like a plus or a T, and then you can see that they make a perfect square in the corner there, so we call that a right angle. Okay, so perpendicular lines form a right angle when they meet together, when they intersect. We say they intersect at this spot, and where they intersect forms a right angle, okay? So that's perpendicular lines. So for today's activity, we're going to be looking at parallel lines that never touch or perpendicular lines that will cross. All right, so let's look back at the homework, and let's see. This first problem says, what type of lines are shown? Now, it's kind of a hard to see picture because it's black and white, and I see lots of different lines, but I assume what they're talking about are these train track lines right here. So these lines are going in the same direction because they are the tracks for a train. They need to be the exact same width the whole way, and it looks like they're getting closer together here, but really that's just our perspective from where the photo was taken. If you kept walking, you would see that these are all the same length, so that we can keep our rails for the train nice and straight. So these are parallel lines. We can say that those are parallel lines because they just keep going in the same direction for as far as that train will run. All right. The next one, what type of lines are shown? And then it shows this railroad crossing sign. And we can see that these two pieces of the sign are overlapping or crossing each other to form an X. And so we would say if these were lines, we would say that these are intersecting lines. I also notice that they do form a nice right angle, so they are perpendicular intersecting lines. All right, so let's go ahead and write that in real quick. We'll say that these are perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines angle. All right. So for this next one, you're using the hands on the clock are the lines that it's trying to show you. So are those intersecting perpendicular lines, or are those parallel lines? And I'll give you a little hint. They don't look like they form right angles to me, so they're not going to be perpendicular, but they could still be a kind of intersecting lines, or they could be parallel lines. Take a look carefully and then write your best answer in the blank. Same here. What type of lines are shown? It shows these white lines on the crosswalk. That's what it wants you to focus on. Are they parallel lines or intersecting lines? Write it in there. This next one says, on this trapezoid, name a side that will intersect with side AB. All right, so which side will cross AB or will intersect and meet it at one of these points, A or B? Well, there's two different choices. We could use side AC or we could use side BD because both of those cross paths with side AB. So we could say side AC, or we could say side BD. Both of those are acceptable answers. Okay. Then this next one says, on this parallelogram, name a side that is parallel to side HF. Remember that a parallelogram is a side that has two sets of parallel lines. So the top and bottom here are parallel, and then the left and right sides are parallel. So when we have two different sets of parallel sides, that shape is called a parallelogram. A square is a parallelogram. A rectangle is a parallelogram. This rhombus is a parallelogram. Okay? So two sets of parallel sides. Top is parallel to bottom, left is parallel to the right. All right, so then it says name a side that is parallel to HF. So HF is this side right here. Which side will never cross paths with HF? It will always keep going in the same direction forever. Side EG. So we'll write that. We'll write side EG is parallel to side HF. All right. For this one, try to list a side that is perpendicular, forms a right angle, with side JL. Okay. And so you'll write a line and then two letters, like I did up here, to represent the side that you want. All right. Let's take a look at this last one. It says, on this rectangular prism, highlight a side, and then it has these two lines. That means parallel. So highlight a side parallel to side MN yellow. Okay, so I need a yellow highlighter. If you don't have a yellow highlighter at home, you could try a yellow crayon, a yellow colored pencil, any yellow marker, just something like that, okay? All right, so we're going to highlight side that is parallel to MN yellow. All right, and so MN is this one right here. A side that will go the same direction and never touch would be side PO. All right, and then it says highlight a side, and then it has this other funny like upside down T. That means perpendicular because it forms right angles in that little symbol there. So we're going to say highlight a side perpendicular to side OP, green. So if it's perpendicular, it will cross with side OP. So this side would work. It's not the only one that works, but it does work. And so I've highlighted a side perpendicular to OP in green. All right, just remember that these two lines will mean parallel, and these two lines will mean perpendicular. So when you see these symbols, now you know what they mean. All right. We're going to take a look at the back side of this page and keep going with a few more questions. The first one says, the lines on this football field are an example of lines that are A, intersecting but not perpendicular, so they would cross but not form right angles. Well, I do see some lines crossing, but they're crossing at a perfect right angle. So these are perpendicular. This line, whoa, that's a terribly drawn line. This line is perpendicular to this line. So A, I don't think I agree with because I see lines that are perpendicular. So I'm going to slash A. What about B? Do I see lines that are perpendicular? Yes. This line and that line are perpendicular. I also see lines that are parallel. this line and this line and this line and this line. These yard lines are parallel. They run the length of the field or the width of the field, and they go in a perfect distance so that they never touch each other. So they are also parallel. And then angles. Do we see any example of lines that are angles? Well, angles are made from multiple lines or rays being put together at a common endpoint. I don't know how a line alone can be an angle, but if they're talking about like where this line meets this line, then yeah, that would be an angle. So there are angles on this field, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the lines are not angles. In my opinion, I would say that the lines are parallel, although there are some perpendicular, so you could also choose that one. But intersecting but not perpendicular, I don't see those. And angles, I don't really see angles marked out on this picture. So I would say B and C. Your teacher might say they disagree, and they might have a different reason for their answers. So as long as you can explain your reasoning, I think we can accept your answer on this one. All right, then the next one says, look at the picture below. Which statement is true? And then it has all this crazy symbols and stuff down here to accompany this picture. So let's start one at a time and look at what A says first. All right, so right now we're just looking at A. And A says line DV is perpendicular to ray EG. Okay, so ray EG, here, we're going to do a little bit of work real quick. Ready? Get rid of that and highlight. Ray EG, we're going to make green. And that's this guy right here. All right, and then line DV is yellow. We're going to put it right there. Now, the question is, are they perpendicular? Do they form a right angle? And no, these angles that they form are not right angles. These two are obtuse angles, and these two are acute angles. There are no right angles, so these are not perpendicular lines. So A is not the correct answer. So I'm going to slash that trash. And I'm going to look at B next. B says ray EG, we'll make that one yellow, is parallel to line PS. Because these two lines means parallel. And so if this and this were parallel, they would never cross paths. But I can see that they are about to cross paths right about there. If they kept going, they would intersect. They would cross paths. So B is not correct. B is wrong or false. So we're going to slash that trash. All right, so now we're going to look at C. For C, we have line PS, and it says that line PS is parallel to line segment DV. Well, we can see right here that they're forming a nice little cross there. They're intersecting each other, and they are forming right angles. So these are intersecting lines. So C is also trash. We can say safely C is not the right answer because these are not parallel to each other. So now we better hope D is right because we said all the other ones were wrong. Let's check D real quick. D says line PS, this guy, is perpendicular to line segment DV, this guy. And so, yes, we can see that that does form a right angle. So, yes, they are perpendicular to each other. So, yes, D is the correct answer. All right. Go ahead now and try to answer these last two questions using all of what we practiced on the front and back of this page together. Don't forget to go back through and answer the other questions that we have not done together. And if you're totally stuck on any of them, give it a big question mark and bring it to your teacher or me to look at tomorrow. I hope this video helped. Thanks for watching.